Hi guys, welcome to another video of Python tutorial for beginners. In the previous video, we briefly talked about what string is, and so in today's video, we will get into string indexing and slicing, which I think that it will be useful throughout this tutorial because you can apply the same indexing and slicing rules to different data types such as list and tuple. And not only that, the indexing and slicing is considered as one of the key components in most of the modern programming languages. So I hope to provide you with some good information on this video so that we can build some good foundations for our upcoming videos. So without further ado, let's get started. So before we actually get into our main topic, I want to quickly recap about the string. And by the way, if you want to refer back to the previous video, please click the box at the top right corner here. So string is a sequence of characters within the quotation marks. So we can consider any characters either in single quotation or double quotation as a string. There is one thing that I forgot to mention in previous video is that you can also create a multi-line string using triple single or triple double quotation marks. So let me show you some examples here. Okay, so let me create two multi-line string variables. So I'm gonna name the first one as multi-line string variable 1. I'm gonna be using the triple single quotation, so like this. And then let me type, this is Danny writing a multi-line string variable using Python. Okay, and let me create another variable. So multi-line string variable 2, and let me use the triple double quotation here, and let's copy the value from here. Okay, and so let's try to print this out. So print multi-line, okay, 1, and then let me copy another one here, then change the variable to 2, and if we run this, you can actually see that this is Danny writing a multi-line string variable using Python. So this is coming from the 1 and this is coming from the 2. And as you can see, the line breaks was properly applied as shown in the string here. So the difference between this multi-line string versus the single line string is that in the multi-line string, you can actually apply the line break as you specified here. However, if you try to do the same thing in the single quotation string, so let me create a variable, string variable 1, and then let me just use the single quotation because it's the same thing, and let's copy this value and let's reformat this. Okay, and then writing, okay, enter and enter. So if we were to print this out using the single quotation marks and try to have the same line break as we see in the above variable, let's see what happens. So I'm gonna actually go here and then try to print this out, print string variable 1, and if I print this, you can actually see that this actually prints out everything in a single line, even though you apply the line break. So there is a way that you can actually manually apply the line break here. So if you want to use the single quotation or the double quotation without using the multi-line text like this, what you can do here is that you can type \n, and in here, same thing, \n. And if we were to print this out one more time, you can actually see that the line break was applied and all three variables are printing out the same string with the proper line breaks. And also I want to quickly talk about the multiply operator, which we did not talk about in previous video. So in terms of using mathematical operators for string operations, you cannot use divide or minus operators, but you can use the plus operator and multiply operator. And we have learned in previous video that the plus operator works as a string concatenation. So let me recap that real quick by creating two new variables. So first name equals Danny and last name equals O. And if we were to concatenate these two variables, I would just print first name plus last name. And if we run this, you can see the Danny O concatenated together without any space. So we just recapped that the plus operator works as a string concatenation, but the multiply operator works as a repetition. So you cannot really use a multiply operator in between strings. So if we were to do this wouldn't work because it doesn't make sense for you to actually multiply the first and last name. However, you can repeat this first name by n number of times. So you can actually specify an integer here. So let me just say 5. And if I run this, it repeated Danny 5 times. So let's talk about the string indexing, which is our main topic here. So as we have mentioned many times, string is a sequence of characters. And since a string is a sequence, Python needs to have a way of identifying the order of a sequence, right? And the location of each character within the string, we call that as an index. And there are two types of indexing in Python. The first one is the positive index, and you can think of this as a way of numbering each character in a string from left to right, and the other one is negative indexing. As you may have guessed, this is a way of numbering each character from right to left. So you can think of index as which location each of the character is at within a given string. So let's take a look at an example here. So we have a string first name here, which has a value of Danny. So the positive index for the value Danny will start from 0 and will be incremented by 1 until the end of the string. So as you see in the screen right now, the first index always starts from 0. And this is a very important concept in programming. And because the first letter gets the index of 0, the last index at y, we get an index of 4 instead of 5. So let's also talk about the negative indexing. So negative indexing is the indexing that starts from the end of the string. So as you see in the screen, the negative indexing starts from the end of the string. So for our case here, y in Danny is the last character. So the first negative index starts from the letter y. And it will be assigned with the negative index of -1 because that's the first index that we assign for the negative indexing. Then you guys may say that, hey, what about the 0? For the positive indexing, we actually assign the 0 as our first index. However, for the negative index, we are not using 0 because 0 is already being used by positive index at this location, so that the negative index will always start from -1, -2, and so on until the -5, which is the last character from right to left. So now we have some idea about what indexing is. Let's talk about the string slicing so that we can learn about how we can slice out certain portions within a given string. So as I have mentioned in the beginning of this video, that this slicing not only will work for the string, but also for the other data types such as tuple and list. So what that means for us is that we learn this once, and we can apply the same slicing techniques to any other data types without any problem. So let's get into this. What's shown in the screen right now is the syntax for the string slicing. So let me also write this down to the code so that we can actually access it later. Let me also create a new variable so that we can actually practice the slicing. And let me also split the screen so that we can actually refer to this variable in right side of the screen. And we will actually write down our example in the left portion. So I'm going to right click this and then split vertically. Okay, so we now have a greeting variable here. And we also have all the index written down on this page. Let's try to slice out a single character from the value here. So if we want to slice out this W here, then all you have to do is just write the index of the letter W in the square bracket. So I'm gonna do print variable, which is greeting, square bracket, and the index of W, which is 0. And so if we were to print this out, you will see W. And we can do the same thing using the negative index. So print greeting, square bracket, -26. Then you will see a W here as well. So then you guys may be wondering, hey, what about this format here, right? So that you have the start index, stop index, and stride. So this format applies to when you try to apply the certain portion that has the start range and then the stop range and then the stride step. Since we are only extracting out a single character here, you don't really have to follow this format. Instead, you just specify the exact index where the character that you want to extract out is at. Okay, so this time let's try to extract out the dot here. So we're gonna follow the same format. So print greeting, square bracket, and let's start with the negative index, which is -1, and then following by the positive index, greeting, square bracket, and 25, right? So if we were to print this out, then you'd see a dot and dot here. Okay, so before we actually move on to the slicing the word within the string, following the syntax that we have here, let me briefly talk about the index out of range error. So that error is a pretty common error that you can face while you program when you try to access the index that does not exist within the given data type. So in our case, we have a string data type and the end index that we have here is 25, as we can see. So what will happen if you try to access the index of 26? So let's try that out. So print greeting, square bracket, 26, and if I run this, you will see an error saying that the string index out of range. And this is expected because you are trying to access the index that does not exist within this data type, and then the same rule applies to the negative indexing as well. So if you were to try to access the index of -27, which I'm gonna try now, you're gonna see the same error. So by the way, let me comment this so we don't see two errors, okay? And if we run this, and you will see the same error, the -27 index. Okay, so now we are ready to extract out some portions of the string within the first string here. So let me give you some explanation about this formula here. So the variable is referring to the variable that you want to slice. In our case, it's going to be grading. And the start index and stop index means that where you want to start and stop the slicing, so that you can actually input either the negative index and positive index that we have here. And then the stride means that how many characters that you want to move forward or backward after the first character was retrieved from the start index. So let's use this formula to slice out the word welcome here. Whenever we look at the index here, the W is the starting point and E would be the ending point. So the index for the W is 0 and index for the E is 6. However, the start index is inclusive and stop index is exclusive. What that means is that whenever you specify the start index as 0, it's gonna include the letter W. When you specify the stop index as 6, it will not include the letter E because it is exclusive. So what that means here is that we have to point to the index of this space here so that we can actually retrieve the full word welcome. So then the start index will be 0 and then the stop index will be 7, so the index of the space, and then the stride will be 1 because we want to retrieve all the characters within the range that we specified in the start and stop. So let's try that out here. So print greeting bracket 0 colon 7 colon 1, and if I print this out, you will see welcome without any space. So just as an example, if I put 6 here, then we're not going to have this E. So let's see. You see the WELCOM without the last character E here. And Python by default assigns a value of 1 here so that you don't really have to specify the stride value here. If you just type this, you will get the same result. And see, welcome. And we can try to do the same thing using the negative index, so that print grading bracket. So the negative index for the W here is -26 colon. The negative index for the E here is -20. However, we need to point to the index of the space here because the stop index is exclusive. So that I'm gonna say -19. And if I were to print this out, you see the same word welcome here. Okay, so we've successfully sliced out the word welcome here using the positive index and then the negative index. Let's also try to look at some other examples of the slicing. So the first example is the default value. So that what happens if you don't specify anything in the bracket, right? Let's say that you only specify this colon. So let's test what happens. So print greeting bracket and colon. So you don't have any value here, meaning that you don't have a start value and stop value. So this is same thing as you just printing out the greeting, meaning that it's going to print out every string within the greeting variable. So let's print this out, and you see welcome to do programming. So this is identical to print greeting, right? And the next example here is that if you want to slice a string from a specific start index to the end of the string, then you can just type print greeting bracket start position 2, for example, and just type colon. So what this will do is that it will slice from index of 2 until the end. So let's print this out and see what happens. And as you can see, the first 2 characters WE was chopped off, and you see the rest of the string here. Okay, so let's move on to the next example. So we're gonna be looking into the stride. So stride, move forward every 2 characters, right? So let's say that we want to actually print out every 2 characters. So W, L, O, and E. And we want to actually apply that to the entire string here. So then what we can do here is print greeting bracket colon colon 2. So what this 2 colon means here is that we don't have a start or stop position, meaning we're gonna print out everything. However, we're gonna print out every other character because we specify the index of 2 here. So let's print this out. And as you see, WROET, so you are actually seeing every other character, meaning that it actually jumped the index by 2. Okay, so the next example is very similar to the one that we just did. So this one is a stride with start position, start index, right? So print greeting bracket 8 colon, and we don't have a stop index, so we're gonna leave it blank. And then we wanna stride by 2. And if we were to print this out, then you can actually see that the start position was at the T here, and then it's gonna jump every other characters, so that's what we are seeing here. Okay, so the next example that we're going to look at is the variation of this example here. So in this example, we are retrieving everything because we haven't specified the start position or the stop position. The only thing that we specified is the stride, which is 2, meaning that we're going to get everything, but we're just going to jump every other character. So the example that we're going to look at right now is similar to this example. However, we're going to use -1 as the stride. So -1 as the stride. Okay, and print greeting bracket colon, meaning you're gonna get everything, however from the backward, -1. So what this -1 means is that you're gonna actually start from the dot here, meaning from the right side to left side, and you are retrieving everything, the colon. So if we were to print this out, you will see the complete reverse of this string here, starting from the dot and ending at W. So this is identical to reversing a string, and this is a pretty well-known Pythonic way of reversing a string using one-liner. So it's kind of like good to remember this command here. So we just took a look at the example of reversing a string. So can you actually reverse a string in a more manual way? And of course you can. So that, let me just put a manual way of reversing a string. So you can just print greeting, and then, so let's use the negative index here. So -1 colon -27 colon, and you're gonna put -1. So what this means here is that you're gonna start from the -1 index, which is the dot here, and the -27 here means that you're gonna end after this W because the stop index is exclusive, and the -1 means that you are actually moving character by character in this direction. So that's why you have to do -1, right? Because you start from the -1, the next one will be -2 because you are adding -1 on top of it, and in here it's gonna be -3, -4, -5, and so on, up until you reach the -27, which is at right here. So when you print this out, you will actually see the exactly same result, but this is just a more manual way of handling it because you'd have to hard code the stop index here. And in this example, one thing to keep in mind is that whenever we are talking about slicing a single character, I told you about index out of range error, and you might be wondering, hey, then why didn't this line actually throw that index out of range error? Because the -27 here is obviously out of the index because the W here has the -26, and then the -27 doesn't exist here. So the reason why this didn't throw an error is because it is actually following this formula here, and the reason why this formula sometimes needs to go outside of range is because the stop index is exclusive. So that means that if you want to actually get a full string, you'd have to actually go outside of range at least by 1 in order for you to actually get the full string like this. And similar to this above two examples here, if you want to extract out the entire string without the first character, then we can do this. So extract out everything without first character, right? Print greeting bracket 1 colon. So what this means is that it's gonna omit the first character, which is the W, because it has the index of 0, and we're gonna actually start from this E to the end. That's what this colon means, because you didn't actually specify the stop. It means that you are actually retrieving the entire string to the end. So if we print this out, you will see everything except the first character. So now we've went through some of the examples of indexing and slicing. So let's try to combine the positive and negative indexing together. So now let's try to slice the word welcome using both the positive and negative index. So I'm gonna write slice welcome using both positive and negative indexes. Okay, indexes. And I'm gonna be printing greeting bracket, and so the index for the W and the negative index is -26, so -26, and I'm gonna be using the positive index for the stopping, which is 7, because the stop index is exclusive, so that we cannot really point to here. We have to point to the space right afterwards. So I'm gonna write down 7, and then the stride should be 1, right? Because we are starting from -26 here, which is here, and then once this gets run, it's gonna add this value 1 on top of it, so it's gonna go to -25, -24, and so on until it actually reaches the positive stopping point of 7, which is right here. So that the Python is actually behaving a bit smart, because not only it can read the stopping point as the positive index, but also it can read the stopping point as the negative index. So as long as you reach the stopping point, regardless of of whether it's a positive or negative, it's gonna stop. So whenever we print this out, you will see on welcome here using both the negative index as a starting point and positive index as the stopping point. Okay, so let's have one more example here, and this time we want to actually slice out this OD, OT in the right to left direction. So the target that we want to slice is OD space OT. Okay, so if we want to do this, then we're gonna write a print reading bracket, and then I'm gonna use the positive start index, which is 12 for this O here, okay, and 12 colon, and then the negative ending index, which is right after this T, which is the space here, is minus 19. Okay, and since I want to go from right to left, I want to put a stride of minus 1. So if we print this out, you will see OD space OT. So OD from this way, OD space OT. So the thing that's happening here is that we started from the positive index of 12, and since the minus 1 is a stride, when you run this, it's gonna subtract minus 1 from 12. So it's gonna go to position 11, which is this. And then after that, it's gonna go to position 10. Then it's gonna go to 9, 8, until it reaches the negative index stopping point of minus 19, which is this space here. And that's what we are seeing in this print statement here. Okay guys, that's it for this video. I feel like we've talked about most of the major concepts about indexing and slicing with some good examples. And so if you have any questions or comments, please comment down below. And if you have not already subscribed, please click the subscribe and like buttons. It means a lot to me, and I hope to bring you the more of Python videos as regularly as possible. Thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you in next videos.